This video is going to show you how to manipulate how to get data out of Google Search Console into something else, so you can then group it and see little charts and graphs about what's been happening to your keywords, what's the queries that Google's returning your page for. So here I've set up already the date ranges here, which are the 17th of July to the 28th of July, and we'll call that the before period, and the 4th of August to the 18th of August, which we'll call the after period. The MEDDIC update took place on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and into the 4th of August, so this gives us a before period and an after period. And you can see that reflected in the two lines. Now, after you've set that up, you can see under the Pages tab here, we've got all the pages of our site listed. What we want to do is to select one page. Now, this gives us figures for only the Pain After Tooth Extraction page, and then switch to Queries, and this shows us here every query that Google returned the page for in the SERPs with how many impressions were made. So we'll sort that so we can see that the number one query was throbbing pain after tooth extraction, which Google put forward 1,591 times into the SERPs. The second one is how long does pain last after tooth extraction, and the interesting thing here is that 1,591 before, after is 1,327, which we can see is a loss of 264. But the second one, how long question, moves from 1,450 to 52, so that's a huge drop there. So what we want to do is to export this data into something else where we can manipulate it and do calculations automatically. If you go to this little icon, the down arrow on the right, just above where it says difference, then we can see this is for exporting data. Click that and we get export into Google Sheets. Click Google Sheets, it will open up and we have all the raw data in a spreadsheet. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call this something else, because we want to find this again, and we're going to call it Pain After Tooth Extraction. That's our new name for this sheet. Now, when you look here, you can see that this top row, row 1, is full of, this is what they call the header row in table speak. And by the first cell contains the words queries. Second cell contains the July dates and then clicks. Third cell contains the August dates and clicks. Then we move on, we've got before, after impressions, before, after CTR, before, after position. So a lot of this we don't want. That's not what we're interested in. We're interested in impressions. So we'll select B and C, which were the clicks information, and we will right click and we will hide the columns. We'll select F, G, H, I, and J, which are the CTRs and the position data. We'll right click, move down and hide columns. Now we're going to go to D1, which is the header for the column, and we're going to change that to before impressions. And I'm going to go to E1 and I'm going to change that to after impressions. And I'm going to make this all bold just because. So that's bold now. So we can see we've cut the data down a lot. Next thing I'm going to do is underneath this word FX is a little grey button that doesn't look like a button. If I select that, if I press that button, it selects the entire spreadsheet. What I'm going to do now is go to the data entry in the menu, click data, go down to create a filter. Now you can see here in every column heading is a little filter, and that filter, if you click it, gives you a number of options for the things you can do in that column. So I'm going to go to before impressions, click the filter and sort from Z to A. And what we have is all the data sorted in descending order for the first before impressions column. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hide some of this data, cut it out from view, because if I go to the bottom of the spreadsheet, it tells me there's 1,258 entries, and a lot of them, you can see, have very few impressions. So I'm going to choose to cut it here at under 100 impressions. Now, because I've crunched the numbers earlier, I know that 40% of the total impressions are covered by these first 28 rows. The rest are all very long tail, and long tail matters, but if I use too much data, then it becomes too difficult to work the charts. So in order to get a view of what's going on, the next thing I'm going to do is go to above the 29 and click there. That selects the entire row. If I click where that 29 is, the entire row is selected. The next thing is I press Shift and Control and the down arrow all at the same time, and it drops me to the bottom of the page. What I want to do now is right click. So that's automatically selected that huge chunk of data. I'm going to right click there and I'm going to go hide rows. And this is what I am now left with. I'm left with 27 queries with a whole list of impressions of before and after impressions. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write into K1 here. I'm going to write diff imp percentage. And what I want to put in that column is the percentage difference that's happened between the before and the after impressions. Now you can copy and paste that. I did one here earlier. So this is the formula that goes in. E2 is after impressions, D2 is before impressions, and D2, and then I divide by the before impression. So I'm taking the difference and dividing it by what I started, and that gives me a number. So let's copy that, paste that into there, and now I've got a number of minus 0.16. That says that the difference between after and before is it went down 0.16, which is if I click this percent, it formats it as a percent, so I've dropped 16.5%. I'm going to click this decrease decimal places so that I get a simpler number to look at. And then I'm going to put my cursor over there. When it turns into a cross, press the left mouse button, then you can drag that all the way down the page, and these are now all my percentage changes. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sort this by different impressions, the percentage impressions changes, and I'm going to sort A to Z, which is ascending, because minus is a very small minus number. So minus 99 going up to plus 57. So those queries are now not in the before order, but they're in the order of how much they all changed. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make all of this blue. I'm going to use the text tool, make it blue, because I then want to be able to see what's going on when I segment this up a bit. I'm going to select if it'll let me. I've selected from A1 all the way down to E28. So I've got selected all the queries, all the before and all the after impressions. And I'm going to make a chart out of this data, and that is just unbelievably simple. You select your data, you go to Insert, you go Insert Chart, and bingo, you get a chart. And this chart is linked to the data and can move. So I'm just going to add some more rows. Gives me a bit more space for my graph. I've got before impressions and after impressions. Now what you'll notice about this is that this is all stacked up. I'm going to sort back into before and after. So before impressions are now going to be sorted in descending order again. That's the biggest before page, the second biggest, and you can see I've got stacked data. Now I'm going to open the chart area, chart editor, chart style, and here you can see I'm looking at a stacked column chart. I don't want stacked columns. What I want is bar charts side by side. So I'll just do that again. There's a little down arrow by chart type. Click that, and I've got all these different kinds of charts I can look at, but what I want is a column chart with the numbers side by side. So I've changed the order now, and that's what I'm looking at. And let's just have a quick look at this. What you can see here is that the first query, which we noticed earlier, throbbing pain after tooth extraction, dropped a little. The second one dropped a huge amount. Third one dropped a little. Fourth one dropped a huge amount again. So you can see relative. The red ones are all the after figures. Blue ones are the before figures. So we'll just shrink that down again while we make the next chart. Now the next chart is if I select queries and I then drag down to the bottom and then press the control key, and then I go to diff imps and keep pressing the control key, press the left hand mouse and drag down and then release everything, and I've got my data for a new chart, but I've not collected the inside data. I'm only using the two outside columns, and I'll do that again. Go to queries, press the left mouse button, drag it all the way down to the bottom, pressing control. Keep control pressed and release the left mouse button. Go to diff imps, and I've still got control pressed. Select, keep pressing the left mouse button again, go all the way down the page. Sometimes it has a mind of its own. You have to do it again. So we'll do it again. Press control, drag all the way down to the bottom of the page. Keep control pressed. Press the left mouse button, drag all the way down to the bottom again. Release the left mouse button, release control. Now I'll go to insert before it changes its mind. Go to chart and bosh, a second chart. And this one is also very interesting. This is the difference in percentages versus the queries. Now these charts are all linked to the data. So if I click the filter and I sort from A to Z, you can now see this column here, column K, has sorted itself from the most hit down to the least hit, and that's reflected in the graph. Now, what you can see here is that there are 2 or 3 shapes here. From here to here is a shallow curve, then the curve gets a lot steeper, and then the curve goes positive. So let's look at these 3 things. The 3 positive, let's start at the top, the biggest hit ones. We're going to look at everything up until this point here. So we'll call that minus 88%. So I'm going to select, and so that I can see what these are doing afterwards, I've selected that area and I'm going to change that to red. And then the 3 positive ones, I'm going to select that area and change it to purple. And then this area here, say to there, we're going to just make that green so we can see what's going on. So that's from minus 85 down to about minus 27. So minus 85 to minus 27. So, and we'll make those green because now the reason I'm doing all that is I now have 4 colors, and if I sort the before impressions back into their order, you can see that the red ones have been hit the most, and they're all 80s and 90% falls. So what we're looking for is what is common about all these red ones. So let's go to the different impression column, sort it so they're all together, and we'll just go down these. Pain after wisdom teeth removal, 7 days. How long pain after tooth extraction? How long does pain last after tooth extraction? Tooth extraction pain, how long? Pain after tooth extraction, how long? How long should pain last? Now, when I look at that, effectively, what's happened is that any query that has a question in it, like how long, Google, which used to return good numbers, has now returned very poor numbers. So the second most often asked query on the page, Google used to return 1,450 impressions for that. And now it's returning 52. So there's a common factor in all of these, which says Google used to like that page for this query, but Google doesn't like it anymore. And Google has found somewhere else to go. So what I do is I would go to a private window. I'm doing this in Firefox, and I'm just going to put in how long does pain last after tooth extraction. Now I'm signed out, and here we can see what Google does like. Now Google likes all of these pages that are answering the question, how long does pain last? You can see how long should it hurt, how long does it take, how long does it take. So what I would do is I would go and look at these pages, and I would see what Google has returned, what Google likes in the content of these pages, and then compare it with my page about pain after tooth extraction to see what the difference is. We'll just take a look at one. Now, interestingly, this is a page about dry sockets. which is what happens when you have a tooth out. But it specifically asks the question, how long are you at risk? How long does it last? So Google has found a bunch of other sites that it prefers to yours when that particular question is asked. Now you can see that this technique can be quite useful in looking through pages. What I'll do is I'll go back to the Search Console, and we'll pick another page. And we'll do this, but we'll do this a bit quicker so that we can get some more information. What we need to do is we need to go to Search Console. We need to close that particular query, which we do by closing the top button. We need to go back to Pages. We'll scroll down a bit and we'll just take a look at this. We'll take a look at jawbone infection. Pages. We're on the one page now. We'll go to Queries. We'll go to the down arrow. We'll click that. We'll put the data into Google Sheets. I'm going to call this jawbone infection. And I'm going to do everything that I did earlier, but I'm going to do it a bit quicker because I can. So hide those columns, change that to before, change this to after. Select the whole sheet, go to Data, create a filter, filter the page by the before impressions. Now you can see here, before I had 29 pages. Now this is a less popular page. And what I'm going to do here is, I think I'm going to go down to about, last one I went to 100, so I'm going to go to 50. That gives me 26 bits of data. Select the row, press Control, Shift, down arrow. There's only 480 pages, 480 entries on this one. Hide the rows. There's my data. If percentage equals after number minus the before number divided by the before number. That gives me a figure. Press the percentage button and clean it up a bit. Wait for the cursor to turn to a cross, drag it down. Now I've got my queries, and I'm going to turn all these blue. Same kind of method. Turn them all blue. I'm going to make the first chart. Select that. Go insert chart. There's my chart. It's stacked again. I'm going to go to the little right drop down arrow on the chart editor. That opens up. I'm going to select the side-by-side columns. And again, you can see what we've got, which is some pages that are hit and some pages that are slaughtered. These pages here have really lost a lot. So we'll look at how that is. Select, press Control, press the left mouse, press control, release everything. So I've got 2 bits of data selected. Insert chart. That gives me my chart for the differences. Now I'm going to do the same thing, which is I'm going to go to the filter. I'm going to sort in an ascending manner, and that gives me again a bunch of quite similar. There's a bunch of quite similar losses, and then the losses change form going down. So I'm going to look at that. That last one there is symptoms of jaw infection 93. Symptoms of jaw infection 93. Change those red. And the next ones, I think I'll make the next one red as well. No, I'm going to leave that. Right, now if I resort by descending numbers, I'm looking at what was returned before. And what I've got is some losses in the first and the second, but these losses here are much higher, 95%, 94%. Symptoms of jaw infections. So when I'm looking at this, I'm just going to look for everything with symptoms in it. So I'm going to press Control F, and I'm going to type in symptoms. And Google's found 4 results. The Sheets has found 4 results. 95, 85, 93, and 85. I'm just going to sort by loss. So there's this cluster of things here. All containing the word symptoms. And added together, that's probably 375, 289, call that 5, 650, 750, 770, 870, 9. It's around 970. So the total number of impressions for words with symptoms is pretty much right up there. Sort from Z to A. The top is 1240. So everything with a symptom in it was probably the second most searched number. Now the reason I say that is because if I go to performance, I go back to pages, and I'm just going to look at that page. So this is open the page. Now I'm going to search for the word symptom. Symptom will do. Now you can see here there is one entry on this page about jawbone infection, and that is in the navbar for grinding symptoms. So in the main content, nowhere do I see the word symptoms. Now this is interesting because here we do have a section that says, how do you know? There are several signs to look for. And medically speaking, signs and symptoms are different things. So I think that that probably needs looking at. Let's go back to the spreadsheet. The word symptoms probably needs looking at. We'll do one more while we're here. Because once you get the hang of it, it can be quite quick. And I want to look at sort by the number of impressions. Tongue ulcers is what we're going to search for, because this is also interesting. Queries. So I'm now on a single page. This page, tongue ulcers. I've gone to queries and I'm looking at all the queries that have been returned by Google, that Google has returned this page for. I'm going to export the data into Google Sheets. Same procedure, B to C, hide the columns. Hide these columns. Make that a little bit bigger, so we can see what's going on with the queries. In here we're going to add this imps percentage, and again we have, actually we'll do the filter first. Select the whole page, data, create a filter, filters on every page now, sort by Z to A, call that before, call this after. Percentage differences here equals after minus before divided by the original, which was the before number, and you can see we have got a big drop, 97%. Now I'm going to go down to, I can go down to about 30, so why don't I go down to there? 451 entries on this page, so the number of queries is getting smaller. Hide those rows, go back to the top, select that, turn that into a cross, drag it down, select, sort A to Z. Now what is strikingly noticeable here is that these numbers are really falling. Minus 100, minus 98, minus 97, minus 96, minus 94, minus 90. We'll turn all that blue. We'll make the top part of it down to, well, we'll do the charts first. Queries before and after, all the way to the bottom, pressing the left-hand mouse button, press Control, or don't even need to press Control. Go to Data, go to Insert Chart. There's my before and after impressions. Stacked column chart at the top of the chart editor on the right. And just because we can, I'm going to sort this in descending order. So you can see this is very clear. Blue is before, after is red. That's a pretty striking illustration of Google now going somewhere else for its answers. So again, the thing to do is to put the query into Google and see what pages Google is showing that it does like. We're going to, I'm just going to make the second chart. So mouse over, press Control, drag all the way down, keep Control pressed. Mouse over the new one, press left-hand mouse button, drag all the way down. Two sets of data, chart. Here's my new chart. I'm then going to sort that in ascending order. And again, you can see here, now this is a quite different chart to all the others, which is a huge number of the queries have just been blanked by Google. Now what you need to do is put some of these queries into Google and see what kind of pages. But this is looking particularly as though hard to say really, could be anything. But the only way you're going to find out is to go to Google and have a look to see what it's preferring now. But this page is distinctly, practically every query here has had a fall of over 90%. Anyway, that is how you can put data into Google Sheets and start drawing some conclusions from what you see.